All right, guys, what's going on? How are you? I was just saying that the weather is weathering, summer is summering, so we're all excited about it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Welcome to What's the 411. We're excited today to have Miss Taijah come through and talk to us about all of the great things that she is doing. So without further ado, welcome to What's the 411, and I will let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself. Go ahead, girl.
Thank you so much. And yes, I agree. As you can see, I'm outside, so the weather is amazing today. But thank you again for having me. My name is Taijah Cox Armstrong. I'm 23 years old, and I'm the author of the children's anti-racism activity booklet, I Will Make a Difference. I'm also a student at Carleton University, and then I run basketball tournaments, I run pop-up shops, I do job fairs, anything to do with youth. I'm probably there and running it and making it happen for the youth of today.
Okay, okay. She's doing her thing. 23 years old. You should be definitely very proud of yourself. But you just shared something with me that you decided to step away from your 9 to 5 and you're now full force out here. Talk about it. Talk about it.
Yeah, so I have about, I want to say 6 years of experience in the non-for-profit world. So I've worked at a lot of different non-for-profits, whether it's teaching, whether it's youth work, whatever it may be. I've always worked at not-for-profits. So recently I realized, I put in all this work for these other businesses, and then I go home from 4 to 9 p.m. and I'm doing the same work for my own business, and the balance wasn't there, right? And the passion wasn't there either. Like, I was dragging to go to work, but I was so excited on my lunch break to like take a phone call or take a meeting or work on a post for my business. So today was my last day at my 9 to 5, and now I'm full force working on my book. So I just recently started creating workshops. So I've been emailing every single school in every single city. So I emailed every single school in Brampton, every single school in Halton. I'm just like developing these lists. And then today I also started working on an e-course for my book as well. So I'm just working on just different streams to bring in revenue for myself. And obviously right now it's not perfect. I'm not going to say I quit my 9 to 5 and I'm a millionaire and I'm just chilling and I'm sitting on money. But I'm taking the steps to get to where I want to be. And it's going to be a long process, and it's going to take me having to invest in myself. And I'm going to be down maybe a couple days or a couple weeks or a couple months, but I know the outcome is definitely going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it.
Definitely. It will be worth it. Betting on yourself, like I said, is always 100% worth it. So big up yourself on that because that's a huge move. And at 23, you're out here. And I love that what drew me to your page was I will make a difference.
Mhm.
And from the things that I saw, I'm like, this girl should change that name to I am making a difference because you will make a difference. I don't know how much more you're going to do, but you are doing the thing already. So you definitely should be very proud of yourself. You
Thank
should be.
you.
Hmm. So talk to us about your journey on becoming a creative. Like what made you say like, oh, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do this? Like, what was it?
One thing I can say about myself is I'm really, really compassionate, and I always feel the need to do something. So if I see something happening, I'm always like, okay, what can I do? So when I was I want to say I was in grade 10 or grade 11. So I live in Brampton. So I was raised in Brampton, but born in Toronto. So I live by downtown Brampton. So one of the non-for-profits I used to work for was located in downtown Brampton. So every time I'm driving down in the morning, I'm just seeing the homeless community struggling every single morning. So that was kind of my first initiative where I'm like, you know what, I want to do something about it. And one thing I really try to express with my brand is you can make a difference, but you can make a difference to your capacity, right? I want kids to know that they can make a difference in their own way. It doesn't have to be a matter of them, they're going to City Hall and they're protesting, right? But they can make a difference in a way that they can to their capacity. So at that time, my capacity was to do a donation drive. So I made a post on Instagram. I started collecting donations and I did it. And I'm like, okay, that was great. Like I felt like I really made a difference. Like, what else can I do? So from that, I ended up doing stuff like youth basketball tournaments because it was COVID and I noticed a lot of Black youth were inside, right? Suicide, all those mental health issues kind of come into play. I'm like, we need to get our kids active. What can I do? I did a basketball tournament. I did a coding workshop for Black youth, right? So over time, I just kind of see where is there a lack of and what can I do to fill that gap, right? What can I do to fill that lack of either workshops or happiness or anything that people need in their life? I try to find my way to squeeze into it. obviously over time I found out that my passion was more so with youth, and it was hard at first because my mom was kind of like, Tasia, this is great, but are you getting paid? Like, like I'm doing all these initiatives. She's like, yeah, I'm so proud of you, but where's the money? And at first, there was no money because I'm doing everything out of the kindness of my heart. And obviously I didn't know about stuff like grants, and I didn't know about sponsorships at the time, right? I'm using my little paycheck and going to the dollar store and buying toothbrushes and stuff, right? So over time I've definitely grown a lot. I've definitely learned about kind of how to run all these different amazing initiatives, but also sustain myself, right? Because obviously life, we need money to live, we need money to breathe and eat, right? So but yeah, that's kind of where it started though, just seeing where I can fill gaps and where there's a need and what I can do to my capacity to fill that need, right? So that's kind of where it all started.
Wow, that's amazing. So talk about some of the initiatives that you have going on right now, because I noticed that you're putting out some posts, you're talking about workshops and stuff like that. So talk about what you're doing right now.
Okay, one thing I can say is I'm all over the place a lot of the time because it's like I want to do everything so bad. So sometimes like I'm just everywhere. But currently right now I have an 18 plus men's basketball tournament coming up August 26th. The goal of that was to kind of give men above the age of 18 who struggle with getting noticed by coaches, and that's more so because maybe they don't have the resources to go to school, they don't have the money, they don't have the funds to go to a tryout, right? So the point of the tournament is to have give them the ability to play in front of coaches. And then the next thing I have coming up is a job fair. That's going to be in July, hopefully, and it's in partnership with RBC and Jobify, because as we know right now, right, a lot of people are looking for jobs, right? So I want to know what I can do to kind of help that. I know a lot of employers who are looking to hire people, so why not bring that together? So I have the ball tournament, the job fair, and then kind of what I'm working on personally right now is obviously my workshop. So right now it's more so me doing outreach, so cold calling schools, cold calling school boards, trying to like present myself, right? So those are the three things I kind of have coming up, but mainly the ball tournament and the job fair for sure.
Okay, all right. Well, talk about your book.
The book. Okay.
Yes.
So I wish I brought a copy. I always walk with a copy, but I didn't bring one today. But essentially the idea behind the book, so it's aimed for ages 7 to 13. And what I find a lot now with kind of racism focused books for that age group is like they're coloring books, right? Or it's like they're story books, like, and those are great too, right? My beautiful black hair, my amazing skin, like those are amazing books. They're fantastic books. But what I really wanted was a book that is teaching them concepts, right? So my book is an activity booklet where they're actually learning about what racism is. They're going through scenarios. They're talking about racism. They're talking about identity. What is your identity? What makes up your identity? They're doing activities. There's partner work. There's coloring. There's fill in the blanks. There's videos that they can watch as well, because I also sell lesson plans for parents and educators. So the idea behind it, you can almost call it a diversity and inclusivity textbook for younger kids, right? So for example, in one of the chapters, they're learning about equity versus equality. So for example, I have a bunch of bandages on the page and some kids that have cuts on their legs. So first I go, okay, give out the bandages equally. So obviously every kid would get a band-aid. But then I go, okay, now give out the bandages based on equity. So now only the kids with the scars would be the ones getting the bandages, right? So we kind of talk about those concepts in a way that kids can understand and kids can grasp it. And then we also talk about the ways that they can now go out in the world. Like, how can they spread these messages, right? They can talk about it with friends. They can have mom or dad or their parent. They can, talk about it with their teachers as well, right? So the book is more so a textbook that teaches kids about diversity and inclusivity and the role they play in that as well.
Mm. Very, very important. What inspired you to start that book?
So back in don't hold me. I'm really bad with like remembering the years I did stuff. I believe this was 2020. Myself and my partner is CJ Myers. He's also the co-founder of one of my non-for-profits, which is Blacks in Power. But we both organized a rally called Peel's March for Justice, and that brought out Mayor Patrick Brown, Trustee Kathy McDonald, and a lot of community members. About I think like we had a lot. I think almost nearly 1,000 people came out to that, teachers, students, everyone, right? And we marched from the Peel Police Station on here, Ontario, all the way to the school board, the Peel District School Board. And from that, I was like, like we were chanting all these things, like we want change, we want, this in embedded in our curriculum and all these things. But I'm like, okay, so I'm asking for these things to happen, but who's gonna be the one to present them with the ideas to put it in the school? So I'm like, okay, I'll do that too. So I wrote the book, and now it's more so like I have one school board interested in kind of implementing it in their curriculum, and we're talking about that over time. But that's kind of how it started. I'm like, okay, I know that kids need this, right? And it's not only for Black youth, but even those who don't identify as Black either, right? White youth as well. Because I remember at one of the jobs I worked, I was a manager there, and one of my coworkers, he is white, he identifies as white, and he made a post, "All Lives Matter." And I was like dreading the conversation, but I had to have it with him, right? And it was bad because he generally didn't know what that meant. He generally thought it meant like I'm supporting everyone, I care about everyone. He didn't understand what all lives matter meant. And it's like, because we're not taught it. Like we don't understand these concepts. We're just saying anything and we don't know what it means because we're not learning it in school. So why not start implementing this into the curriculum, right? We have to learn it. We're going to talk about it anyways. Why not teach kids the correct way to understand these concepts? And I feel like people are like, oh, they're kids, they're too young, they don't need to know these things. But they're on social media, they're seeing it, they're outside saying it, right? But if we don't teach them the correct way to use this language and understand the language, we can't expect them as adults now to go out in the world and be respectful, right? So that's kind of the idea behind the book. Just get them when they're young, help them understand the concepts, let them learn about what these words mean, what does racism mean, what does equality mean, and then what role do you play in it as a young man, as a young woman, or as whoever you identify as, right? And then how can you go out in the world and make a difference? That's kind of the idea behind the book.
So important, so important. But you also do speaking engagements as well, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about like how you got started doing that and why telling your story and telling stories in general is so important.
So I think I got started just by like someone asked me, like I never really looked into like being a guest speaker anywhere. I'm like, I don't got a story to tell. Like, what do I gotta say about myself? And then my first one was, well, when it comes to like the youth, I want to say my first one was maybe like even earlier this year, when I started doing my own bookings, like as Taijah Cox Armstrong, you can book me and pay me. But like obviously when I worked for the non-for-profits, I would be going to the schools with them and speaking to the youth and speaking to the kids. But for my own story, just started this year. And honestly, like they just asked me, like, do you want to come in and tell your story? I said, okay, like sure, it won't hurt. And then I realized, like these kids actually need to hear from someone who's obviously, I'm not their age, like 23 is young, but they're pretty young, but like someone who's close to their age, I can say, and someone who identifies, as a young Black woman, and they can like kind of look up to and hear kind of how I got here and how I'm even still in that younger age bracket and trying to make things happen, and hearing that it's okay to fail and it's okay to have fallbacks, right? So I think the more I started speaking and the more I started connecting with a lot of different youth, it kind of made me a little bit more passionate about it. But it was more so because of my initiatives. People are like, yeah, we want to hear your story. And I'm like, I'm still writing my story. Like, oh, with my face. I'm like, I'm still writing my story, but I'm willing to share kind of my journey so far. But I feel like my story is always ongoing. It hasn't even ended yet. Even every time I go to like a new booking, I'm either adding to the story or there's a part I'm taking out, because like I'm always growing and changing every single day, right? So that's how I got into it. Someone messaged me and I was like, okay, sure, here we go. I get really nervous too. Like public speaking, believe it or not, I get so nervous. And I'm like, hi everyone. But I did it, and I'm happy that I've been doing it. And it's something I'm passionate about. Like being able to use my voice to inspire others is something I've always been passionate about. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into that.
Well, definitely your story is very inspiring. Any youth that sees what you're doing, and even any adult, myself, I'm watching to see all the things that you're doing at 23 years old. I'm like, this girl is got it going on right now. Like, yo, trust me, you definitely are an inspiration. But how does that make you feel when you're able to relate to these young kids and you're able to relate to other people, even elders? How does that make you feel?
It's honestly, it's a blessing, and it's something I'm thankful for every day. And that's one thing I try to remain. I always try to, like, it sounds corny, like remain humble, but like I always try to remain humble, right? Because at one point, I was Like I was failing classes, right? I wasn't this perfect scholar, entrepreneur, 9 to 5 girl. Like my life was not perfect, right? So I remember the times where like I was at a point where I felt like I'm watching guest speakers and I'm in high school and I'm looking up to them, right? So, it makes me feel humble and it makes me feel like almost proud of myself as well, right? Because one thing someone told me, like, Taijah, like, don't forget to be proud of yourself, right? Because you're always working so hard, you're moving so fast, you don't take time to just be like, you know what, like, you're doing good, you're doing okay, right? And taking those times to just breathe and appreciate yourself and appreciate what you're doing. So I'm just blessed, honestly. I'm blessed that people care enough to hear my story. I'm blessed that I have a platform, or any platform I get a chance to share my story, talk with people, connect with people. And my thing is, even if I only connect with one person out the whole audience, at least I know I'm making an impact in that one person's life. You know what I'm saying? It's not about the quantity, but it's about the quality of the impact that I'm making.
Yes, very, very, very important. Um, and so you are a young Black woman, a young Black leader in the community. Talk to us about the impact that you want to make on the community members, both young and old.
The impact that I want to make on, well, specifically on the younger folks, is just letting them know that you can do anything, right? As long as you put your mind to it, as long as that you have that drive and you have that work ethic and that consistency, you're able to do it. And then, like, one thing I've always believed in is kind of looking up to your elders and respecting the people who kind of paved the way for you as well, right? So I always try to remind myself, I wouldn't be here without my mom. I wouldn't be here without those who kind of laid the way for us, right? So it's just important to me for them to know that I'm out here trying, right? I'm out here trying to show them, like, it's, as long as you put your mind to it, as long as you try your best, things will work out. And one thing that I really try to practice is kind of mindfulness and having that positive mindset. And I know it's really, really hard and it's easier said than done, but just kind of writing in my gratitude journal and looking back and reflecting every single day and just making sure that I keep myself accountable and holding myself accountable in everything I do. As long as I can be a role model for myself, I believe that I can be a good role model for those who kind of look up at me or look at me as a role model as well.
Very powerful stuff. It's extremely important because life is not always going to be a bed of roses. And even though you're treading along and you're working towards all of these different goals, it is important to make sure that you are being grateful, but also celebrating yourself and those little wins that you are accomplishing, because you definitely are accomplishing a lot of things. So you definitely want to make sure you're celebrating yourself as well.
Thank you.
So talk to us about your why.
My why. This is a good one. Honestly, this is like, I feel like I don't have like a definite answer for like why I do what I do. It's just something that, like, it feels wrong when I don't do it. Like, and it sounds so weird. Like, as I said before, like when I was at my 9 to 5, like I'm doing my work and I'm kind of like, like this doesn't feel right. Like, does it feel like I'm supposed to be doing this? But when I'm doing an outreach call or when I'm talking with the youth or helping someone find a job, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is like, it's kind of like a rush almost. It's kind of like, you just know, like when you're in your passion or you're in your field, or when you're eating your favorite food or you're playing your favorite sport, it's just like, like this is like the best feeling in the world. It's like, that's my why, because I can't even imagine who I would be if I wasn't the type of person I am, right? So whether it's I'm doing a basketball tournament, whether it's I'm just talking with the youth, whether I'm helping a friend find a job or working on a resume, it's like, it just feels like it would, I don't know, I just wouldn't feel right if I wasn't doing all these things. Even like people are like, Taijah, yeah, like if you need something, go call Taijah. You need a resume done, call Taijah. Oh, you need help on your job, call Taijah. Like it's kind of like, it's a part of me. It's kind of who I am at this point. It's like my brand identity. I am I am just a giving person. I'm a really loving person. I love, love, love to just give and put out a positive energy as much as I can. Even like when I was kind of going through like my high school career and growing up, I was really, really quiet and I was really, really shy. And my mom and dad, like they didn't really have much. Like I remember I was in middle school and my dad, he tried so hard. Like I wanted that Adidas tracksuit. Everyone had the Adidas tracksuit, but we couldn't afford it. So my dad went to like the knockoff store and got me like this turquoise and pink Adidas tracksuit. And I got bullied for it. But I was like, you know what? Like it's okay, because that's the stuff that kind of made me stronger. And I think I lost my voice over the time. Like because of the bullying and etc. And I kind of mass fighting for other people instead of fighting for myself, right? Like I would be like the one to like speak up against all these human rights, but when it comes to like if I was someone whatever bully me, like mouth is shut. But like it was kind of like my escape, right? Like I felt powerful. I felt like I was able to use my voice. Now, eventually it has helped me kind of correlate back into my personal life now when it comes to myself. But at the time, like those initiatives is kind of kept me going. It made me feel powerful, I could say, when I was going through a dark moment within myself with all the bullying and the distractions, etc. So yeah, that's my that's my why.
Wow. And so you definitely motivate, you inspire others, but what inspires or motivates you?
Honestly, I would say just the people around me because there was a time where I surrounded myself with not the best people and I was not who I wanted to be and it wasn't someone I would want to look up to. And then eventually, I started surrounding myself with the right people and other like-minded individuals who wanted to work hard and who had these amazing goals and amazing futures. And it's like that's one thing that you have to realize, right? Who you surround yourself with is so important. Like I know our parents are always like, your friends and this and our representation of you, they're right. Like I used to be like, okay, mom, whatever, cool. But like it's true, right? When you're around people who are like working as hard, they're working on their work, they're doing your work, you're kind of like, okay, like do mine too. Like, it pushes you, right? So yeah.
There's an old saying, I think my mom used to tell me that too. You show me your friend and I'll tell you who you are, you
Yes,
know?
yes, exactly. Yes. I think I heard that the other day actually.
It's a very true statement, very true. So talk to us about how we can stay in touch with you. If anybody needs anything, like they want to join this basketball tournament or they need a resume or they just need to connect with you. Talk to us about all of the services that you offer and then how we can get in touch with you.
Okay, so again, so currently right now, I work on an initiative based basis. But if you were to DM me and say, "Hey, Tage, I need help with this," I'm not gonna ever turn you away. But my main like communication platform is definitely Instagram. So it's Tage, so ITSTAIJ. In terms of booking a workshop, you can visit www.iwillmakeadifference.biz. And yeah, again, like I'm like, as I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, I'm all over the place. Sometimes I might be doing a pop-up shop. Maybe the next month I'm doing a job fair, right? So it's kind of like a surprise almost every single month. Like just know whatever I'm posting, you're gonna benefit from it somehow, some way. That's always the goal, right? I'm always looking to help a certain group or a certain, whoever needs a job, whoever needs a sport, if you need anything, just, and even if you want to collaborate on an event as well, I'm always down for literally anything. Even my first ball tournament, I used to work out at this gym and I was going to cancel my membership. And he's like, "Oh, like, what do you do?" And we're just talking. And then he's like, "Oh, like, you want to plan a ball tournament for me?" And that was my first one ever. And I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And it was actually really, really successful. Like I did a youth, it was under 16 years old ball tournament. I had like, I think 12 teams sign up and it was all done within 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, so I could do something. So yeah, anything you guys ever want to collaborate with, you can always DM me again at It's Tage. And yeah, I'm never gonna turn anyone away. You can just, I'm really friendly. I try my best to be on top of my messages and on top of everything.
All right, all right. So do you have anybody you want to shout out? Anybody you want to say what's up to?
I want to shout out my mom. Hey, mom. I'm gonna be home soon. But no, I'm joking. I'm not joking. I'll be home soon. But no, honestly, I do want to shout out just like my mentors, honestly, like the people who kind of got me to where I am today. Orlando Bowen from One Voice, One Team, Jermaine from One Voice, One Team. Like these are people who really helped me break out my shell because when I first got to the at One Voice, One Team, I first got hired there, I was like kind of shy, kind of to myself. Like I was doing my initiatives, I wasn't really like outgoing with it, but they definitely brought me out my comfort zone a lot. They pushed me. And I think those are probably the main people who kind of got me to where I am today. I want to say I do have a lot of mentors. I hope I didn't like, I love all my mentors. I love all you guys. But like One Voice, One Team in that family, they definitely are the ones that got me out my comfort zone and they forced me to be very uncomfortable. And I'm thankful for it every single day. So shout out to them.
Beautiful. And of course, you get the last word. So, do you have like a motivational or inspirational quote that you kind of go by on a daily basis that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so it's in my email signature as well, but it's be the light you wish to see in the world. So, I always try my best to go out with a positive smile, a positive mindset no matter what. Even when things are going wrong, I try my best to see the best in it. And again, I know it's really, really easier said than done, guys, but trust me, like ever since I started writing my gratitude journal, I feel more spiritually lifted. Like I went to church again for the first time last week, and it's been years since I've been to church. But you know what? Like just taking those mindfulness days and going on walks, even me sitting outside today, right? Just doing little things like that. It will keep you going. It'll keep you in that positive mindset so that you're able to bring that positivity everywhere you go and every time you meet someone.
Mm,
Yeah, that's my last
awesome.
words.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you, for coming through and sharing all of this great information. I wish you all of the best. You are already doing some great things, so I can't wait to see what other things you have coming up. And I know that they definitely will be successful, so I'm looking out for that. All right, so I may just pop up at one of your events to show some support for sure. Yeah,
Of
man.
course. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, honestly.
No worries, no worries. All right, well, we'll definitely keep in touch. And yeah, I will see you soon. Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys. It was a great conversation. And just remember a couple of key things that she was saying. Do what you can with what you have, where you are, okay? And be the light you wish to see in the world. Two very powerful statements that you can do so much with. You can take away, just press rewind, watch the video over because those are not the only two things she was saying, but there's a lot of great content that she had, guys. So make sure that you check her out on Instagram, send her a DM, send her a message, email her, get connected. She's got a job fair coming up and a basketball tournament coming up that you guys definitely want to check out. All right. I will see you next week, same time, same place. Peace.